Hello special family, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, hello, I'm Autism Mom, and on this channel we discuss autism and everything in between. So today's video is going to be titled Autism and Childcare, because I've realized that there's not a lot of people who talk about the childcare struggles that we as autism parents face. What I'm trying to say is, finding childcare for a child with special need is not easy, and especially if they're not potty trained, nonverbal, and the list goes on, and have meltdowns, and etc., etc. So I'll go into details and give you my childcare history, and then I'll get to today where we are with that right now. So if you watch my video before that's called my autism story, I'll put a card here above so you can go check that out. And once you watch that, you'll kind of be able to follow with me. So when I moved back to the United States, and when we got a diagnosis for Ramsey and we figured out what was wrong, what we had to do, we got him into a special needs school, a private one, because he can't go into the regular school system until he was 3 years old. But the special needs school that we tried to get him into, there was a waiting list. So we were on the waiting list. In the meantime, I got a job and I looked for a daycare close to the job where he could go. So I interviewed the daycare, asked them what their experience is with a kid with autism. They said they've done it before, they've had a kid before with autism, and everything was going to be fine. I didn't have a lot of daycares to interview since that was the only daycare in the neighborhood of my job at that time. So everything was settled. I let him go to that daycare, and when I was picking him up in the afternoon after work, because I used to work the 7 to 3 shift, I would notice that he's always in a corner by himself. He doesn't like other kids. As I mentioned in my previous videos, he doesn't like other kids. So what they would do is they would get him to feed him, they would change him on time, but they won't let him interact with the other kids because he didn't like other kids. He liked to play by himself. But the whole reason for putting him in a regular daycare was to have him integrated with normal kids, that he can get used to them. But that was not what happened, and that's not what they did. Just to not be bothered, they just left him in a corner to play by himself, fed him on time, changed him on time, and just that. So two months went by. He was at that daycare for 2 months, and I applied for jobs at the hospitals because I've been working in a hospital since I was 20. That's all I know. And I got the job, so I quit that job at the bank and I took the offer for the hospital. I was given 2 weeks to make the decision if I wanted to work day shift or night shift. Now, in New Jersey, in the hospital, I used to work 7 to 3. In Atlanta, the hospital shifts are 7. I can't even say 7 to 7. That would not be fair. The hospital shifts are 12-hour shifts, but your shift starts at 6:30 a.m. to 7:08 p.m. Or if you work the overnight shift, 6:30 p.m. to 7:08 a.m. And I asked the recruiter if I can take some time to figure out my daycare situation, and I'll tell her if I want the day shift or night shift. So I went ahead and figured out the situation. I think God must have been working because everything aligned perfectly. So once I got offered the job, the special needs school also called and said the opening is open and Ramsey could start the next Monday. So I was not gonna deny my son from going to the special needs school because he needed intervening right away. He needed to start therapy sessions right away. He needed to work on the stuff that was not clicking right away. So I was not gonna deny him that. So we put him in the school, and the school was from 8 to 4. So he needs the school. So 8 to 4, that means I can't work day shift. Every daycare that I checked, they're either 6 to 6 or 7 to 6. And in the hospital, I have to clock in at 6:30 and I have to clock out at 7:08. So if I take 6 to 6, I won't be in time to pick him up in the evening. If I take 7 to 6, I still won't be in time for work or to pick him up. So the day shift wasn't going to work. So I kept searching, and I found this wonderful lady that my cousin took her son to, and she said she was gonna do it. She was going to watch him for me while I work. And I was like, okay. So I went to the house, did the interview, looked around, because we're like Mother Goose. We are really keen, especially with kids with autism. We are very, very protective. If I even notice one thing out of order, I will withdraw my child. That's just my mentality. So everything checked out. The lady was legit. She had an in-home daycare. She only had 10 kids, no more. She does less, but no more than 10 kids. And the first month, Ramsey was so used to this lady. They took such good care of him. If he could still go there to this day, I would always take him back to her. She is amazing. But the only overnight cares I found were far out. There were none around me. Finding overnight daycare is not a joke. And I don't have help like some people. Some people have family who are willing to. I'm not blessed that way. So I have to figure it out. So before he started at that daycare, I need to backtrack. Before he started at that daycare, the first one I found was close to the job. It was literally 8 minutes from the job. And the nurses and some of the other workers took their kids there because it's close to the job, and there was a 24-hour daycare. So I applied to that 24-hour daycare, did the interview, he got accepted. I started work. The first month was already not looking good. I took him to the 24-hour daycare. It was expensive, but I didn't have a choice because I didn't have daycare. That's the only one I could find. And I was not taking him out of that special needs school. When we tell you that special needs parents sacrifice, they sacrifice. I never worked an overnight shift in my life, and I was willing to work that overnight shift so that Ramsey can go to that special needs school. Yeah. So he got into that daycare, took him there. The price, I think it was like $175 a week, something to that extent. And that was expensive to me. And I'm like, damn, $175, that's a lot of money, but I don't have a choice. Oh, that wasn't the whole bill. There were hidden fees. So once the bill came, it was $175 for the daycare. It was $25 for food, and it was another $25 for supplies. I don't even know what supplies Ramsey was using for $25. I was so confused. So you're practically paying $225 a week for daycare. It gets worse. I get in there, I pick Ramsey up. Same thing like the other daycare. He's in a corner playing by himself. All the other kids are with the teacher. She's doing stuff with them, and he's not integrating. He's just there in the corner. They let him be. Yeah, we don't want to bother him, so we let him play peacefully. So that was the issue with that too. But I'm like, okay, hang in there. He's going to the special needs school during the day, so don't be too hard. Just take your time till you find a better solution. In the meantime, I'm looking for another daycare. But that's the only overnight daycare I can find that's 24 hours. So one day, 2 months in, it was a Friday, I picked Ramsey up. Middle in the night, Saturday morning, like 1 o'clock in the morning, Ramsey wakes up crying, screaming, crying. I don't know what's going on. He's scratching. He can't stop scratching. My child is just scratching everywhere, from the top of his head, everywhere, and he's just crying because the fatigue, the irritation, the pain. I don't know what was going on. So I went to the tub. At that time, he couldn't stand the overhead shower. There was no water coming from above to his head. That was gonna be hell. So he only did tub baths. So I filled the tub up with warm water and sat him in there. and he literally stayed in the tub all night. And we stayed there till 6 o'clock. Got up, got him dressed, took him to the ER. I'm in the ER, frantic. I'm nervous, I'm scared. I don't know what's wrong with my child. But we went in there. The doctor checked him out. I work at the hospital, so I didn't have to be in the ER for long. My co-workers, they pulled string, had me in. I showed them my badge, whatever. Got in, he like, Grasham. And I happen to know some of the nurses in the ER. Your son has hand, foot, and mouth disease. I'm like, hand, foot, and what disease? Hand, foot, and mouth disease. I have never heard of hand, foot, and mouth disease, but I was faced with hand, foot, and mouth disease. I'm like, how do you get hand, foot, and mouth disease? What is hand, foot, and mouth disease? So he explained to me what it was. When your child has hand, foot, and mouth disease, it's like red dots, red pimples, like the mouth of the pimple, all over their body, his face, his arms, his legs, his butt, under his feet, between his toes, on his head, on his scalp, it was everywhere. These red pimples were everywhere, and he was scratching for kingdom come. He was just scratching, itching. I'm like, oh my God, how can we treat this? What do I do? He like, when you go home, take off all the linen, anything he came in contact with, take it, wash it in hot water. I'm sitting there like, wash it in hot water. I'm throwing all this shit out. Like, I'm throwing it out. I'm not keeping none of this stuff. So we got home. I took off his clothes, packed the linen, everything in garbage bags, threw them out. I called the school. Ramsey's not the daycare, the 24-hour center. I already told the special needs school that he wasn't coming. He was sick, so we were going to take the week off. I told my job I took the week off because I had a sick letter for him. And I was already there, so I just called upstairs and let them know I wasn't coming. I called the daycare and I'm like, Ramsey's not coming in because apparently he has something called hand, foot, and mouth disease. The lady on the phone gets to the phone and said, oh yeah, so-and-so had it last week, and he probably caught it, not last week, had it a couple days ago, and he probably caught it from her. Didn't they tell you? I'm like, didn't they tell? Nobody told me anything. So a child in the classroom has hand, foot, and mouth disease, and y'all didn't tell any of the parents? Oh, we must have forgot to tell the parents. What do you mean you forgot to tell the parents? That a kid had hand, foot, and mouth disease and touched everything in the room? They're not. Ramsey wasn't the only one who caught it. At least 4 other kids caught it in their classroom. That's the last time he went to that daycare. In the meantime, I'm calling my cousins. My cousins that live here, and it was only one, and I'm telling her like, this is what's going on. I need to find another daycare. This is not working. This is Atlanta. Everything is far. There's no such thing as corner store in Atlanta. Jersey and New York, a corner store is a corner store. Atlanta, a corner store is you gonna drive in your car and drive 15 minutes to the corner store. There's no corner store here, so nothing is close by. So she's like, well, maybe you can try my daycare lady. So I called her daycare lady up. I explained to her Ramsey's situation. She's like, yeah, I've watched kids with autism before. Matter of fact, her niece had autism. So I did the interview. The lady was perfect. That's why I said, up to this day, if I ever needed a daycare and he could go back there, I would take him back there. She was awesome with him. But the problem with her daycare was she doesn't work any holidays. And if you work in a hospital, or you have any knowledge of people working in the hospital, there is no such thing as holidays. We work any day. The only difference with holidays, you won't see it in your paycheck, but we work any day. So holidays, and then in her schedule for the year, she has 3 vacations scheduled, which it doesn't work with my job. So I always had to find somebody to cover those times. And a friend of mine, her daughter, offered to watch Ramsey during the holidays or the times that she can watch him, because she lived right around the corner from her, from the daycare, which worked perfectly. From my house to the daycare is 25 minutes. I kid you not. 25 minutes. So I start work at 6:30 p.m. I pick Ramsey up from the special needs school. Listen to the times. I pick Ramsey up from the special needs school at 3. I already have his overnight bag packed in the car. I take him home because the special needs school is only 10 minutes from my house. Give him a shower, feed him, pack his snacks, his dinner, give him a shower, put on his pajama. I never send Ramsey to anybody's daycare that they have to give him a shower. I just don't want them to give him a shower. I even tell them, if he wakes up in the morning, leave him in it, just change his Pampers. I'll take him home and I'll bathe him. You don't have to give him a shower. When he comes, he already had a bath. Ramsey went and I give him a shower, pack his clothes, and he's ready for daycare. We leave the house at 4. Mind you, work starts at 6:30. I leave the house at 4, start driving to daycare. I don't get to daycare till 5:15. 5:15. Then I drop Ramsey off, then have to turn back and do the same traffic. Atlanta traffic is horrible. Do the same traffic back to my job to make sure I clock in on time. So it doesn't matter what daycare we found. I had to leave my house at 4 to be at work for 6:30. That's what it comes down to. So that went on for a couple of months until the family friend was like, can I watch Ramsey full time? Because it'll help me out, but he's here most of the time anyways for holidays and days that she's not there, so I want to do it full time. And I'm like, okay, because Ramsey's already used to her. He's been going there for about 4 years, since he was 3, and everything has been great. Everything has been good, couldn't complain. I even felt so comfortable that I decided to go to nursing school. The minute I joined nursing school, everything changed. It's like when Ramsey became 7, everything changed with daycare. When I always text the day before to confirm, okay, Ramsey's coming tomorrow. Remember, oh, I can't watch Ramsey this weekend. I'm not gonna be home. Mind you, I have to go to work. So now I'm calling around frantic like, hey, can you watch Ramsey for me so I could go to work? I'll pay you. I'll pay you the same money that I pay the daycare, because I would never ask somebody to watch my son without paying them. I know my son is not your typical child. I know Ramsey comes with challenges. His Pampers needs to be changed. He's not potty trained. He's a picky eater. I send his food and his snacks. He's a finicky sleeper. It takes him a minute to fall asleep. I know it's not easy, and he doesn't speak, and he has meltdowns. So yeah, I know it's not easy. I would never ask anybody to do it for free, but I always had to ask, like, can you please? And not like I was going to the club or to a party or have fun. I was just going to work. But it started happening really often. When I say often, I mean, oh, I can't watch him this week. I have something to do. Oh, this week is not gonna work. I'm out of town. I've never seen somebody been out of town so much in their life. I had to get the hint, but I couldn't catch the hint because I had no other person. I couldn't find anybody else. So I asked a family member. So I started paying her. Mind you, if you think leaving my house at 4 and getting to daycare at 5:15 was long, this family member lives even further, but I didn't have anybody else. I didn't have a choice. I leave my house at 4 and I don't get to their house till 5:30, 5:45 sometimes with the traffic. And then have to drive back. Good thing the drive back was like an hour. The traffic was going to them, but coming back the traffic wasn't so bad. So for some reason, strange reason, God, I always made it in time to work. But at first they were like, you know what, this drive is too much for you. Imagine picking Ramsey up. Let me picture it for you. Imagine I pick Ramsey up at 3, give him a shower, pack his bag, feed him. We start driving at 4. This is on a Friday, because now I had to quit full-time, work part-time to be able to make this stuff work. So we leave the house at 4, drive an hour and a half to Conyers, then in the morning, and drive back to work. Then in the morning I leave work after working a 12-hour shift all night, drive back an hour and a half to Conyers, and come back to my house 10 minutes from the hospital. And I do that Friday, Saturday and Sunday morning. I used to fall asleep at stoplights. I was sleepy as get out on the highway. This was the most dangerous phase in my life. I don't even know how I did it. Up to this day, I couldn't tell you how I did it. Then the family member said, you know what? Let him stay overnight and you could pick him up on Sunday. Drop him off on Friday, pick him up on Sunday. That was a blessing. That was a blessing in disguise. But after a while, I kept getting the same thing. I can't watch him this weekend. I'm out of town. I can't watch him this weekend. I'm out of town. And I heard through the grapevine that the meltdowns were getting too much for them and they didn't like changing his Pampers. And I could understand. I'm a parent. I'm a human being. Changing the Pampers of a 9-year-old is not the ideal thing. I totally get it. My son is not the easiest child to watch. I get it. So that didn't work out. And I had to call out of work one day because they couldn't watch him. They was like, no, I can't do it today. So I called my friend in Florida and I'm explaining to her, I'm crying, I'm depressed, I'm frantic, I don't know what's gonna happen, am I gonna lose my job? And I explained to her, she's like, go to care.com, get a nanny from care.com. And the process is pretty simple. She walked me through the whole process. She came with me on interviews. She set up, let me tell you, when you have a kids with special needs, you're gonna learn who your friends are. You're gonna learn to separate the friends who like you for fun and the friends who like you for you. It's two different people. You're gonna learn who's in your corner. Like, you wanna know who your friends are? Have a kid with special needs and see what happens. Get real busy and see what happens. So she walked me through it. My friend was with me on interviews. I consider her a sister. I don't even look at her as a friend anymore. She's my sister. We might not talk every day, but that girl, she is something else. But I got a nanny off of care.com. One nanny came 2 days. She's like, this is not what I expected. This is a little too much for me. I can't do it. Like, okay. Found another nanny. That nanny said 2 months she was doing great. I love that nanny too. She was awesome. 2 months in, she sent me a text one day when she was supposed to come into work, and she said, I'm sorry to have to tell you that I'm resigning as of this instant because you work in the hospital and I'm afraid that you're going to give me COVID. Yeah. So that's how that one went. I was furious. I was pissed. I was ready to cuss her out. But then I had to put myself in her shoes. Like, she kind of has a point. I work in the hospital. It's a possibility. The other point to it that she's not seeing is that she could go to Walmart and get it. Or she could talk to her mama, cousin, auntie, uncle, nephew, and they could give it to her. But okay, I get what you mean. So that was that. Then I found the third nanny. She was like, okay, she can do it. She worked out great for the first 2 months. I even was recommending people girlcare.com. It was going great. I always check in with my nannies the day before they're supposed to come and the morning of. She never called. I called her phone, nothing. I left messages. Voicemail was some weird message. My phone is broken. And mind you, she sent me a message that morning, see you later. But for some reason, I decided to send her a text message again to clarify. And it was nothing. I'm home panicking, frantic. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Good thing my boss is understanding. My manager, she understands. She knows Ramsey's situation. So they're not hard on me. They are very lenient with me. So she told me, okay, it's still early. I'm going to put you as a call out for the week so you can get your daycare situation straightened out. The nanny never showed up. She contacted me. Nope, she didn't. She didn't contact me. And his dad came home, and his dad and I were sitting down that same week, and I was telling him, like, this is what happened. The nanny never showed up. I'm so sick of these nannies. Daycare is frantic. Daycare is crazy. I just can't put up with this daycare stuff. Now that he's older, it's harder to find somebody to watch him. I don't know what's going on. And he was like, quit. I'm like, wait, what? He like, quit. I think you should stop working and be home with him. I'm a special need parent. I've never not had a job. The only time I didn't have a job was when Ramsey was born for the first year of his life. When you hear your child has special need, you're trying to make sure everything is going to be okay for your child. My thought process was, if something happened to his dad, I'm there to pick up the slack. I'm there to cover the cost. He said, okay, well, let's do the math then. We did the math on me staying home, how much I pay and how much I spend on money when it comes to work and daycare. After I max out all my retirement accounts, my Roth IRA, my HSA, and after I pay the nannies, I don't have a penny left. He has to still fill in the gap. So we came to the conclusion that I was working to pay nannies. And I'm like, but what about my retirement accounts? He's like, think about the joy you would feel when you're home with your child. Oh, and let me backpedal. The reason why I went to care.com, I picked Ramsey up one weekend from daycare. And I don't know, we parents, I swear. I picked Ramsey up one weekend from daycare. We're sitting and it's time for him to take a shower. I take off his clothes, and as I'm going to take off his shirt, he starts flinching. And I'm like, wait, what the hell is that? So I went to take off his pants, he started flinching. It's lunchtime, I put him to sit. I went to put the bib on, he's flinching. Anything you come close to him to do, he's flinching. I'm like, oh, hell no, somebody hitting my child. Somebody hitting my child. Then the teacher calls me. Have you noticed that Ramsey's flinching? Like, anytime I come close to him, he starts flinching, like he stay and he flinched like this. Like somebody was hitting him, because he's like, I'm like, oh, hell no. And his dad is, oh, hell no. So leaving my job was not even a discussion at that point. Once the flinching started, we did the math, and we realized that it is possible for me to be a stay-at-home mom and go to school and watch Ramsey full-time instead of taking a nanny, and we can live off of one income, and nothing will change. We will still live the same life we had and still max out all the accounts, and everything will be okay. I'm telling you this story just to tell you that finding daycare for a child with special need is not easy. We have to jump through hoops and all kinds of stuff just to make things work. And once people start telling you, oh, I can't, oh, I can't, oh, I can't, and it becomes a week after week thing, you start getting in a position with me where you don't want to leave your child with anybody because you don't trust anybody, especially when they start flinching. It's a no. Like, the flinching, that was it for me. That was it. And I'm still getting used to being a stay-at-home mom, but this is the best decision I ever made. I know everybody can't do this, and they might not be in the same position or situation to do this. But my mind is at ease. I have peace. I do miss my coworkers. I loved working with them, but my son comes first. His safety comes first before anything. So that's a sacrifice I have to make. To sum it all up, I quit my job for autism. Hope you learned something from this video. I hope my story tells you what I've been going through, so you see that it's not always cookies and cream. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.